And if I can even take it a step back to when you start up the company, many people who start up companies have gone through the sort of tertiary education process or even postgraduate education, where they've been in environments where it's all about money in and slowly developing products. Maybe they studied PhD or whatever at a university. So certainly when people start up a company, it's all about getting some money and being able to survive on that money. And it's often started by very technical people who want the best possible product, and all that they are focused on is the technology, and they're tech heads who love their technology, and as long as they've got some money and they can survive for the next year or so, they're happy. Of course, there comes a point where you need to take your product to market, and that, I think, is when it becomes very difficult. Fundamentally, the culture of the company up until that point is essentially a non-commercial culture. By comparison to the example of, if you started a stationery company, the first thing you would worry about on day one is your sales. And now you've essentially built an organization where that is not your first concern. Your first concern is your technology. So we found that in Vascular, we found that challenge very difficult. We had to slowly wean people off that idea that we're purely a technology company. We had to get people to focus on sales and to focus on the top line, the revenue of the company. And a lot of the ways we did that was to start looking at the revenue and painting a real picture of our finances and saying, look, this is what our sales look like. We need to bring in sales. This is what our gross margin is. This is what our bottom line looks like. And by sharing that information and making people fully aware of it. And when we started selling, we didn't even at the end of the month look at what our sales were. It seems quite bizarre. I mean, now we look at our sales every day, whereas then, a month would pass and we'd be into the next month and be wondering what our sales, how did we do last month? And so it's really about focusing on that and making everyone buy into it. But also, you've got to change the way people behave. So people that previously thought that they were only development people, you have to put them in front of the customer. And you have to take I think it was Sam Walmart who said, if you aren't serving the customer or one of the folks supporting those that serve the customer, what are you doing here? You have to bring in that type of culture that it's all about the customer and what the customer wants. And everybody from those people in production or R&D actually does support the customer. And if you can get people to do that, you can make them responsive to the top line. On a board level, I found it much more difficult. The board tends to start out as a sort of defense of capital. In other words, they're investors who put money in and they want to ensure their money is well spent and not wasted. So the whole modus operandi of the board is about protecting investor capital. When you get to that sales stage, the board's modus operandi needs to be changed towards strategic growth and strategic development of the business and growth of markets and new products. And what I found very difficult is to try and change the board to a mindset that fits the new paradigm shift we've been able to create within the organization.